Hi everyone, I'm going to take a walk through the AAT Using Accounting Software Practice Assessment that can be downloaded from the AAT's website in the Study Resources section. It's the only practice assessment they have, and it focuses on a company called the Graze Office Store. I'm going to try and keep the narration as brief as I can to make this video as short as I can. You'll need to refer to this paper as I won't be referring to it again throughout this video. So I'm going to start Sage and I need to add a new company. I'm going to set up a new one. I'm not going to change the location on the PC, and I'm going to put the barest minimum in to get myself going. Speed can often be an issue. Sole trader. We are told the financial year is the 1st of June for the current year, so I'm going June 2020. And don't forget to enter the VAT rate of 20% because it is a VAT registered company. Choose a password, and now I'm going to go ahead and create the company. You'll notice I used very little information there. I didn't even bother typing the business address because or the VAT number because it's actually not requested in the paper. I don't customize at this point, I go straight into Sage. So the first thing I'm going to do, having created the blank company, is set my program date, and even though the paper is telling me to set my system date to the 30th of June for the current year, I'm actually going to set mine to the 1st of June for the current year, just for the initial portion of the setup of this paper. And it might be worth pointing out that I'm doing this as I would do if I was sitting at the exam, which means to say that I'm going to approach this paper the fastest possible way, and if I've got time left at the end I can always backfill some of the stuff I've left out. So I'm going to start by entering some customers that have already got an opening balance at the 1st of June. So I'm going to do this not by using the wizard, I'm just going to click new because I want to do this as quickly as possible. So the barest minimum I need, if I could type, to put in is just the account code and the name. In fact, the name can be changed at any point. The only thing you can't change is the account code, so don't mess that up. That's very important. So I'm going to the opening balance. I'm going to put reference OBAL. You can see it's defaulted to the 1st of June, and I'm going to put the gross amount of 84426 in. Now before I leave this, I'm just going to scooch down to credit control, and I'm going to tick terms agreed and say that the payment due date is 30. I'm going to repeat that for all 3 customers. Okay, I've got my 3 customers in, so now I'm going to switch to the suppliers module, and I'm going to repeat that process for the suppliers. I'm just going to do the first one on screen. I'm not putting the addresses in here for a reason. Firstly, if I run out of if I have enough time at the end, I can always add those in if I need to. And secondly, there is a very good chance I don't need to. If you go to the end of the paper and you have a look, there is no request for the any report that shows the customer or supplier addresses, so why should I waste time entering them if I never actually have to produce any evidence that I've done it? Well, I'm going to repeat that for the other 2. Okay, I have got all of the opening balances in for both my customers and suppliers now, and a good way to test whether you've done it right or not is to go to the next task and have a look at the balances on the sales ledger and purchase ledger control accounts. So you can see the sales ledger control account here should have this amount, purchase ledger should have this amount. There's a couple of ways I can check that. I could either clear and swap and look at my balance here, or I can go into the nominal codes, run a quick trial balance, and it should confirm that I have those balances, which I do, so I know I've done it right, so I can proceed. So now I'm going to enter all of these balances that I've been given as opening balances on the accounts. So just remember that these run roughly in the same order as the Sage chart of accounts. So up here, these accounts here are all non-current assets, and you would expect to see those in the 00 range up to sort of 0099. Then we've got our 1200, 1230, and moving on down, can't remember their numbers. Capital is 3000. Then we have our sales accounts here, but I'll come to those in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose an account that already exists in Sage. Let's do computer equipment, for example. Choose an account that already exists. Let's do office equipment, and just tweak the name. So all I have to do is double click and then tweak the name. I could create new ones. If you're going to create new ones, make sure they sit in like 0033 and 34, or 0040 and 41. Have to sit up in the right area. So all I'm doing is tweaking an existing one, then putting an opening balance on. Again, this is why I set my program date up to the first, because it means I can scooch straight past that, completely ignore it, and put my balance in, making sure that I check between debit and credit. Let's just do the next one together. So now I'm in this screen, I can just type in the number, and I'm going to just change that to computer equipment, go to my OB and put in next one down, and I'm going to work my way down, putting those account balances in, and I'm going to keep going until I get to bank current account. Actually no, I'll stay with you because I'm going to just take a look to see, okay. So let me just go and explain my process, my thought process, because I think this is one of the hardest bits of the paper actually. So the next account I've got to do is delivery vehicles, and when I have a look at my existing nominal codes, I can see I've got a motor vehicles one here, so it makes sense that I can just use that one and tweak it just like I did with office equipment, just double clicking, and I'm just going to change this to delivery vehicles. Then scooch to its partner, that's just one below. Oh no, pay attention. So the next one I need to do is fixtures and fittings. Well, if I look down I can see I've got a furniture and fixtures one, so I'm just going to use that. If you feel you absolutely have no option but to create a new one, the easiest way to do it is just to type in a code up there and just type in the name here, and it will create a new account for you. Right, and now I'm going to do the bank current account, 1200. No name change required there. Debit balance means that we have got funds in the business, in the account. If you saw credit balance, it means your bank account is overdrawn. Is that one done? I know my petty cash is 1230 off the top of my head. Petty cash has to be a debit, can't have negative cash. And I'm just going to pause there for a second. So if we go back to the paper, you can see there are notes that we need to make reference to. Note 1 here, if we go down, says, as the individual customer and supplier balances have already been posted, the accounting software you are using may require you to make a separate adjustment for these. And what basically that means is they're already in our trial balance, they're already in our accounts. Now the sales ledger control and purchase ledger control accounts have got different names in Sage. So if I run a quick trial balance again, I'll be able to see them. We saw them earlier. They are called the debtors control account and the creditors control account. So those figures are already there. We don't need to re-enter them as opening balances. So I'm going to scooch right past these two, ignoring them. Now the next one has also got a note. So this is the sales tax and purchase tax control accounts, in other words the VAT. And it's referring us down to number 2, and it says the software you are using may not require you to post these balances individually. Well, Sage does require us to post them individually, so we're just going to carry on exactly as we see it here. So I find the sales tax control account, double click to edit, enter the amount, save, and then I think it was, yeah, 2201. If you're unsure, just type less and it'll give you a list. Right, I'm going to keep going. No, I'm not, because I've just realized I've made a mistake. So what I've done is I've put the balances for the sales ledger control account and the purchase ledger control account against the sales tax and purchase tax. So the easiest way to correct an error at this point is actually really hard to delete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply an equal and opposite amount. So I put a 6949.91 debit on. So what I'm going to do is put the same amount, 6949.91, as a credit. Oh. And that should have the effect of, yeah, it's had the effect of taking me back to a zero balance, which is what I needed. So now I'm going to put it in correctly, I hope. This is what comes of trying to talk and type. So let me just put in equal and opposite to correct, or rather get rid of my error. Good, that's taken me back down to 0. And now I put in the correct amount. And I'm just going to do the last one, which is capital, which I know off the top of my head to be 3000. Capital is always a credit, so don't get this one wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to pause at this point and run a quick trial balance because I want to check something. I want to check that I've done my debits and credits correctly. Good, I have, and the reason I know I have is because I don't have a suspense account down here. If you end up with a suspense account, that means you've got an imbalance between your debits and credits, and then you might need to find your error, and do something about it. Although that said, if this was the exam right now, I probably would plough on regardless, because I could spend too much time trying to find out where the problem was. If I go back to the paper now, I have some important information that I need to pay attention to. So I'm being told that online sales, north and south, are the account codes I need to set up for sales. If I go back to the beginning of the paper, this was actually explained in the sort of setup blurb. Now you may get reading time to read this, so we can see we're being given information about how the business Graze Office Store wants us to categorize sales, likewise how the business wants us to categorize purchases. Sales are 4,000, purchases are 5,000. So I'm just going to go down to my 4,000s now and change this 4,000 to online sales, 4,001 to sales to shops north, and 4,002 sales to shops south. Now do the 5,000s, and it's purchases completed units, purchases of raw materials. I'm just going to have to keep my eye out as I'm processing things to make sure I choose the right nominal code. Now the other ones that we have been given here in the paper, chances are they already exist in some form or another, but I might just need to tweak. It says, so these nominal accounts are needed for transactions taking place in June, meaning that we can go ahead and tweak an account now if we want to, or we can do it later. I'm probably going to do it now. I know rent and rates, I know electricity, I know this one. Stationery I'm not so sure of. I think stationery exists as office stationery, and delivery vehicle expenses. I'm just going to take a look at those. So right down there, that area of the list is around our 7,000s, because that's where our overhead sits. So let's just take a look down. I'm looking for delivery vehicle expenses. Right, so I think that one would easily suffice, or that one. I could tweak either of those two and I would be correct. I'm just going to take the first one and change that to and then a little further down I found office stationery. I don't know why I have two here, so I'm just going to go ahead and change the first one, and I'm just going to change that to stationery, just so it matches exactly what it says on the paper. And travel and assistance. If you can't find what you're looking for, easiest thing to do is click on this up here, sort A to Z, and then strike a T for travel. Let's see, here we go, we've got travelling, that'll do. I'll tweak that one to travel and subsistence. So that's my nominal code initial setup done. Next thing I'm going to do is enter some customer invoices. So I'm going to go into the batch screen. I'm on task 4 now, by the way, into the batch screen, and I'm going to enter all of the invoices given. So actually, if I close that down, this is the point in the paper when I change my program date, because now I'm going to start processing items throughout the month. So I'm just going to switch my program date to the last day of the month. And that'll make my life a little bit easier. So starting with the first one, which is Happy Engineer. So I only need to type the 6 and tab, and then the reference is going to be the invoice number that's given to me. And now I have to be very careful to choose the correct nominal code, and it tells me that this is £800 for shop sales north. Let's just type 400. There we go. Shop sales north. You can put whatever details you like here, because I don't think we're given any direction as to what to enter. So I'm just going to put that, and then I'm going to put the net amount in and leave it to T1 so that Sage can add on the extra VAT. The next one that I'm putting in here is also shop sales, that's hard to say, shop sales north. So I can use my copy cell above key up there just to copy that details down, save myself a little bit of time when I'm processing. Now the Perry Cars one is actually for shop sales south, so let's just double check. Yep, shop sales south is in fact 4002. And finally the last one. Notice actually when you look at your screen you might find that you've got more columns than I have, and that's because I've deliberately hidden the ones that we don't need from my screen to keep the screen as uncluttered as possible. And you can hide columns just by right mouse clicking on the, every time I do that, shop sales north, on the header, and unticking the column you don't want to see. Right, the final net amount I've got to put in is 1864.95. Now don't click save yet, do not click save. Always check your total up here with what it says on the paper. So I've been told that the gross amount on the paper is 6167.94. I look up here, it is correct, so I know I can proceed. Now I can click save. I close that down and then I go to batch credit because the next one is a credit note. There's an asterisk by that credit note number and it says it relates to some items on invoice 00124. Now they must have told me that for a reason, so I'm going to make sure that I match the same nominal code which was shop sales north. And just because it's a credit note doesn't mean to say I shouldn't stop and pause and check that I've got it right, which I have. That's the end of task 4, so moving on to task 5 now. These are all purchase invoices and I'm going to put them all on a single screen. So down to the suppliers, up to batch invoice. I've done the same, I've removed the columns I don't want. I don't want XREF, let me just get rid of that one as well. I'm going to use the invoice number as the reference. And then the nominal code, I have to infer this from the description given on the invoice. So I'm being told this is plastic chairs. So if I look at if I just type 51500, plastic chairs I think falls under completed units. So that's the nominal I'm going to use. I'm going to let Sage add on. Now you can either click save in between each one or you can pile them all onto one screen. Only pile them onto one screen if you're prepared to get your calculator out and work out what total to expect up here before you click the save. I'm a chicken, so I'm just going to put one on each screen. The second one I'm doing is for plywood, which I take to be raw materials. And then the next one's a credit note, so I need to change my screen. That's going to be plywood, raw materials. Remember, check before you press save. Oh, inferior quality plywood. Shall I put that in? Yeah, I have time. That's a bit over the top, to be honest with you, but I'll do it anyway. So now I am on to task 6, which is online cash sales. The only place I can do that from is my bank account, and I've already been told that the cash sales will go into the bank current account. So I make sure I have the bank current account highlighted, and then I go to the bank receipt because the business is receiving money in. If you are using, because when you do the exam you'll have to have the paper and Sage side by side on the same screen, and so what Sage will do is it will what's the word I'm looking for, condense perhaps. Let's see if we can get it to do it. Let's see how far I have to go. Here we go. It condenses the buttons. So for example, receipt has got customer and bank receipt under it, likewise payment, supplier payment and bank payment, so they've been sort of condensed and clustered. Let's just take that back out again. So the reason I know this is a bank receipt is because it doesn't relate to an invoice. So I'm just going to get rid of those annoying titles that I don't need and enter these in. And I'm going to make up a reference of cash sales. I don't know, 1 perhaps. And these are all online sales, so if you remember we had to use the nominal of online sales here, so cash sales. Now I'm going to have to be a little bit careful here because that 4255 includes VAT, and now it's going to try and add VAT on, so I'm going to click the calculate net button to make sure it reduces those two down to the correct amount. Now I'm going to pile these all onto a single screen, so I'm going to use my copy from above button where necessary. I'm just trying to work at speed now, so I'm going to make this one, let's do copy shift to push that up one, copy, because that's not going to be any different, copy, and type in the amount 384.25, calc net, and continue to the other two. Okay, so when I do multiple entries on a screen like this, I always get my calculator out and I total up what I'm expecting the total to be. I'm expecting a total that's ever so slightly different to the one I've got. I'm about 50p short. So I've clearly made a mistake somewhere here. So at least I know I've made a mistake because my calculator tells me so, so I can go off and find it. Okay, all I've done is I've retyped the amounts, and I'm just going to go down line by line, clicking calculate net, and I'm hoping it's right this time. Yep, that's the number I wanted. Good. Yeah, I just had to, I think I transposed a 4 and a 5 while I was typing. So that was an example of a bank receipt, and now we're going to task 6B, which is a payment of wages, which will be a bank payment, again out of the current account. Let's get rid of those annoying things. So it says that wages were paid on the 16th. We haven't been given a reference. I'm going to put backs. Wages, we need to find out wages, so I'm just going to click A to Z here. Wages, regular wages, casual, you can choose either of those, neither will be wrong, but just choose one and stick to it. So if you have to use wages at all for the rest of this paper, use that code. 6,200, and because wages has got absolutely nothing to do with the VAT system, we're going to put T9 for outside the scope. So task 7 is all about receiving money from clients, from customers, credit customers. The first one has come in from Happy Engineers. So because it relates to an invoice, it's going to be under customer receipt. And I select Happy Engineers to see all of the outstanding invoices on that particular customer. The date we received the amount was the 22nd. So let me just change that. I'm not going to type anything in the amount, and I'm going to put a reference. What reference shall I use? Because we're not given one. So I'm just going to put backs as my reference, and it said it's payment of the balance owed at the 1st of June. So the balance owed at the 1st of June will be this one here, and I double check with the paper, yep, that's the right amount, so I can click pay in full. That's the right amount up here, so I click save now. The next one I need to do is GIF recruitment on the that is on the 30th. That's handy. And it says that it's payment of the balance owed on the 1st of June plus a part payment of invoice 0017. So this is the full payment here of the balance owed, paying full there, and then whatever amount I've got left over I can use against this particular invoice. So the easiest way to do that is probably the full amount paid was 1265, so I just get my calculator out, do 1265 minus 844.26, and it tells me that I've got £420.74 left to pay against this particular second invoice as part payment, and that does indeed make the total of 1265 that I required. Now we're on to task 8, and this is all about payments out of the bank. The first two are supplier payments to Fabrics Delight and Totally Wood, but the third one is not, so I'm only going to put the first two on here. Fabrics Delight. Do you know what? I'm gonna for speed, I'm gonna stop paying attention to the date. I'm gonna do everything at the 30th from now on, but I wouldn't recommend you do that in the exam if you unless you really need to speed up. So this is check number 294. I don't put anything here, and I'm being told that this is full payment of the opening balance. Check the amount, save. Oh, do you know, it's killing me now. I can't do it. I can't. It just goes against the grain to not put the correct date in. Can't do it. It's like some form of OCD. Oops. Got that wrong. I might have put the wrong reference on my last one, but I'll go back and check that in a moment. So I'm being told this is payment for the opening balance, there's that, payment for an invoice, that one, and redemption of a credit note, which is that one. And when I've done all three, I should have 42116. Excellent, I do. That's correct. So I save that, and I'm going to close that window down because the one from Mixed Motors actually isn't for a credit supplier. It's just somebody that we have made a payment to without any invoice involved. So I'm going to go straight to bank payment. It is the 30th of June. I'm going to put a reference of, I don't know, make that up, Mick. No, actually I used a check, didn't I? 123296. And it was for repair of a delivery van and vehicle tyres. So you remember earlier we tweaked a delivery vehicles expense account down in my 7,000s. That will be the right one because this is an overhead, this is an expense. So and we've been told it's 450 inclusive of VAT. So if I put my 450 in there and click calc net, yep, that's good. I got my £75 VAT there and a total of 450. So I know I've done that correctly. So now I'm on to doing a standing order, which requires me to do a recurring payment on the bank current account. So I go into the recurring items and I'm going to click add, and it's going to be account 1200 because it's the bank current account, and because it's for monthly rent I need to find the rent expenses account. So making sure I don't choose rent income, make sure it's down in your overhead section, your 7,000, and that's going to be a standing order, and it's rent, And now down here we are told that it's monthly rent, so every 1 month. And the payment start date is the 1st of June, so let me just put the 1st of June in there. And we are told that it runs for 1 year, so that's 12 occurrences. The net amount is for 600, and we aren't going to add VAT. Now if I was doing this strictly by the book, I would, what would I do? You know, I'm probably going to go T9 on it because I know there's no VAT involved. So that set the instruction up. Now stop. Before we go past this stage, this is one screen that you cannot prove to the AAT that you have done with a report. So what we're going to do is just take a print screen of this. So I'm going to strike Alt and print screen on my keyboard. And now I've switched over to Word, and I'm just going to paste my clipboard here, and you can see that's my my print screen, and I'm going to save that now as one of my evidences, which you'll need it again. So for now, let's just leave that open. Let's just leave that sitting there, and we can come back to it in a minute when we need to save the evidence. Okay, so now the instructions are in there, but I haven't processed it yet. See, 0 postings. So I click process, and I should only get 1 entry. If you get multiple entries, the reason is that you haven't set your program date up correctly, and you might be trying to process right up until the current calendar date. So you should only have 1 entry, and if you have, you can click post, and now that's gone into the accounts and it says 1 posting made. If you want to take a screen print of this as well, you can. Just take a, it's better to have more than less. Right, now moving on to task 10, we have some petty cash vouchers. So just to make sure that I don't inadvertently process something on the bank current account, I'm going to switch to the petty cash account here, and petty cash is always a bank payment. So I'm going to get my calculator out again, my trusty calculator, and then I'm going to put them all on the same screen. So I've put all of the entries in. I've used my copy and copy shift just to speed things up a little bit, and I've chosen the appropriate codes based on what I tweaked earlier on when we were looking at those list of opening balances. So making sure not to use any account that wasn't listed in that earlier task. And then my calculator told me to expect £25.95, which is exactly what I've got, so I can comfortably click save. Task 11 requires me to put a couple of journals in, which is done from the Nominal Codes module. So I click Journal Entry. I'm going to do the two separately. I'm going to make up a reference for the first journal, which is processed on the 30th. And the nice thing is that we're given instructions as to which nominal code to use. Well, it'll be the ones that we did earlier. So let me just go back to 0. And where have we got the computer equipment at cost? And then let's go fixtures and fittings. Oops, I didn't put at cost. I'm not going to worry too much about that. So it says this is a correction of an incorrectly coded non-current asset purchase invoice. And I'm going to use exactly the same on the, there I'm using my F6 key to copy down. It's the same, see, F6, much quicker. And then we've got a debit of 95, and all I'm doing is manually moving £95 from that account, from that account to that account, and then click save. I could have put both on the same screen, but I'm not going to do that. So when you do this, we need that wages account. But I didn't use wages regular. I used wages, casual. I used wages regular. I might even tweak that name in a bit. So make sure you use the one earlier. F6. Okay, balance at 0. Excellent. That was easily done. Right, I'm up to task 12 now, and this is where I'm going to do the bank reconciliation. So what I'm going to do before I even move to the well, I'll move to the bank accounts module, but I'm not going to start my reconciliation yet. It is the current account. So before I go to do the reconciliation, I always take my eyes down the bank statement first to see if there's anything that might have popped up on the statement that we aren't aware of. And the first thing that sticks out to me is my bank charges, and the next thing is there's a strong possibility that we haven't put anything in for electricity yet because that was a direct debit. Now I actually prefer to, I know that there's the mechanism to put bank charges in on the front screen of the bank reconciliation process, but I'd rather put that in as just a straight bank payment along with the direct debit of electricity before I even move to the reconciliation screen. So I'm going to do that now. So this is going to be a bank payment out of the current account. So the direct debit was on the 27th. I'm just going to put DD, and it was for electricity. Let's just get E, electricity. There it is, 7,000. That looks right. It is an overhead. Electricity 101. I'm going to assume there's no VAT on that because I think we're actually told there's no VAT. Yes, ignore any VAT. So let's just use T9 to make our lives easy. F6, and then the bank charges were on the 28th, and I'm going to bank charges, make up a reference. Don't know the account off the top of my head. There we go, 7901. Good. I think it's June, isn't it? Yep. Okay, and bank charges, £14. That's it. Bank charges, strictly speaking, should be T2, but you can easily put T9. It's going to have the same effect. Both have got zero tax on them. And then click Save. Good. We should now be in good shape to go to our bank reconciliation. And this is the first indication we're going to get whether we've done it right or wrong. So we're going to put in a statement reference. We can leave it exactly as it stands actually, 30th of June, and the ending balance here is going to be the ending balance here on our bank statement. So I enter that into there. What is it? 21263.79, 21263.79. No, that went wrong. 21263.79. And do make sure this doesn't say the 1st. Make sure that says the 30th. Okay, now what I'm going to do is match every item with my bank statement. I always do it in exactly the same order as the bank statement's given me. So there's my opening balance, that's correct. Now remember, payments and receipts are the opposite way round to what we're being shown on the bank statement, but that's okay. We are money in, money out. Okay, so when I get to the back's wages, remember we originally put it in as 6,200 and then we did an amendment. So I'm going to match that item and that item to total the 6,225.95. Okay, all items matched, and here we've fallen to 0. Just a couple of points about this. If you get left with any items up here, but you have got a 0 down there, you've done it correctly, as long as you have got an end balance that matches the bank statement. The other thing to say is if you get to this screen and you know you've put a transaction in and you're not seeing it up here, chances are you've either put it for the wrong date or you've put it on your petty cash account. Very, very simple to do. So I've got my 0 here. I click reconcile. Oh, Linda, you forgot something. Pause, alert, alert. Okay, I made a big mistake there because I was specifically asked to take a screenshot of that reconciliation screen. I've missed my chance clearly, because now when I go into reconcile, it doesn't look anything like it, and it's very hard to reverse a reconciliation. So if you are stupid like me and you did accidentally scooch past that screen without taking your screenshot, then there is a report that we can run that will at least evidence the fact that we have accurately done the bank reconciliation. So the paper is finished now. What we need to do is run the reports and start exporting them all onto a folder. Okay, we're onto our reports now. So the first report asks us to create evidence 1A is a document showing all transactions with each customer. Now, point to note, if you are up against it time-wise when you get to this point in the exam and you've only got time to run one report, then run the audit trail. Repeat, run the audit trail. Make sure it's a detailed one and upload that. Don't run out of time because the timer will just cut you off. You've got to make sure that you've got those reports uploaded before the system closes down. So, sorry, I digress. Right, so it's a report showing all transactions with each customer. So I'm going to go for the customer activity report, into my customers, over to reports, down to the customer activity module here, and always, if you can, always go for one with detailed on it. Either of these two will do. Now, do make sure that you preview it and have a look and make sure all the customers are there, which they are, because if you had one selected, it would only do that one. But that's correct, so I'm going to click export, and I've already set myself up with a folder. I did that earlier, and then I'm going to change that to and then my AAT number. Oops, too quick. Pause and close. And then it also says a document showing the balance owed by each customer. Okay, I think my customer activity one probably did that, but I think it doesn't hurt to include an aged debtors one as well, because that definitely is going to show all of the outstanding balances owed by each customer. Let's just, what was it, 1B? Okay, the next one is the same again, only this time I'm going to do it for the suppliers. Remember, check it, export. Too quick. Okay, and then an aged creditors one I think I'll do. Is that right? Let me just double check that. It's only coming up with one. Ah, that's because there's only one that has an outstanding balance. That's fine, that makes sense then. Do it slightly differently. Yep, that'll do. If you think that the report you've chosen doesn't give enough information, then run a second one. You can always submit more evidence. Better to give more than less. Then I have to show an audit trail as evidence number 3. So do make sure you choose the detailed one, because that gives the most information, to the markers at AAT. Now do be careful, for some reason often the date here can come up clipped at, oh, got that one wrong, 30062020. There we go. It can be clipped to 2019. So if it says you've got nothing, no transactions, that's the reason. So just change it. Okay, that's looking good to me. Every time. And then a trial balance. If we're feeling like we really want to do this properly, let's do it just for period 1 June. I'm not sure if you'd get marked down if you didn't. Now you have no idea at this stage if this is right or wrong. You've just got to carry on regardless. And then a screenshot of the recurring entry. We did that earlier, didn't we? Here it is. So I'm just going to save as. So I'm saving that Word document into my folder with evidence. Here we go. Evidence 5. And then the last one, well, it should have been a screenshot of the bank reconciliation, but I messed up and I forgot to take one. So I'm going to run a report on the bank accounts, which is reconciled. It's basically a report, the bank statement of reconciled and unreconciled. I'm hoping, if you just have a quick look at this report, what this report shows is the fact that I have accurately reconciled a number of transactions. So this report, an ideal, I should have taken the screenshot, but at least it's better than nothing at all. Maybe I'll lose a mark for that, who knows. So you have nearly finished. Now remember that the AAT cannot see your Sage work. The only thing they get to see are the reports that you have just exported, but right now they're probably sitting somewhere on your computer. So the thing you need to do is you need to go back to the AAT Secure Assess web page that you will have downloaded your paper from when you started the assessment. Then you upload each report individually and you click submit, and you must do that before the timer runs out. Once that timer runs out, it's game over. I'd also recommend taking a backup of the Sage work that you've done. You do not upload that to the AAT website. However, it's something that your invigilators can keep. So if there's any discrepancies or at a later date, they've got something there. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that useful.